All right, welcome back to the Middle Tech Podcast. You've got Logan Jones here today, joined by Gaylord VanGuilder, who is the CEO and co-founder of Buddle Skincare, which is an e-com skincare brand that is focused on solving diaper rash. So we're going to be talking all about the brand that Gaylord is building. Before we dive into this conversation, we just want to get a quick word from our sponsors. Before highlighting our sponsors, we'd just like to state that the views and content shared on this platform do not necessarily reflect those of our show sponsors. Middle Tech is presented by KY Innovation, the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development's Office of Entrepreneurship. KY Innovation exists to support and develop Kentucky's startup ecosystem, and we are proud to be supported by an organization whose mission aligns so closely with ours. If you're a founder building in Kentucky, you need to check out the resources that KY Innovation has to offer. You can find more information by clicking the link in our show notes or going to kyinnovation.com. Middle Tech is also supported by Huntsicker, an impact venture studio based in Lexington, Kentucky. Huntsicker is creating companies out of the ordinary by founding and funding the next generation of purpose-driven startups. They partner with founders to create indispensable solutions to the world's most fundamental problems. On a quarterly basis, they host an invite-only intimate gathering called Fireside Convos, where attendees representing a wide network of stakeholders in the regional entrepreneurial ecosystem discuss timely topics, including the role of AI for startups out of Kentucky and the challenges of identifying and attracting talent. To be considered as a guest, visit huntsicker.co/fireside to apply. Middle Tech is sponsored by Bolt Marketing. Take your website to the next level with a website that's built to work. At Bolt Marketing, they're revolutionizing websites for small businesses that are affordable, customizable, and hassle-free. Whether you have a construction company, a boutique clothing store, or you own a hot yoga studio, they have options for you. Click the link in our show notes to explore their marketing options that can transform your marketing and grow your business. And as a personal note, Bolt Marketing built our website, and they were awesome to work with throughout the entire process. We highly recommend working with. All right, Gaylord, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for taking the time. We're excited to jump in and talk about Buddle Skincare.
Great. Hey, thanks for having me, Logan. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. As I've been starting off these podcasts lately, I like asking a kind of a goofy question, and that is just, how do you describe the business to your mom?
Yeah, I mean, I would tell my mom that we were saving the world one baby bottom at a time. And that's kind of the PG version. I'd probably give her a different version of that. But yeah, that's kind of the path that we're on. It's a baby children's skincare company, and
I love that.
Yeah, our first foray into the market is really challenging the diaper rash market in the U.S.
Well, I can definitely say that it's probably the first time we've ever had somebody solving the diaper rash problem on Middle Tech Podcast. So tell us a little bit about your all's approach to solving that problem. First off, just how was that problem kind of identified in the first place, and then what was your all's approach to solving it?
Yeah, so I mean, diaper rash itself is really multifactorial. There's only so much that any product can do. As babies age, their skin matures, really over the first 12 to 18 months of life. And the diaper environment is really a unique environment that is only around, when we're babies and probably when we're, later in life. And so there's multiple things that go into impacting, that environment, right? For babies, it's, when they're transitioning from, different food sources, whether it's breast milk to formula to soft foods to hard foods. Maybe there's medication, antibiotics and that type of stuff that may trigger, different types of poo, if you would, that may, be more triggering in diaper dermatitis. We might find ourselves on that spring break road trip with the child that's sat in the car seat, for 2 hours too long, and that's impacted. So there's only so much, a product itself can do. I think for us, when we started the company, number one, we surrounded the company with really brilliant people. So our scientific advisory board really helps guide a lot that we do from a disease state perspective, from the ingredients that we use, the formulations, and the overall approaches as well. And so, one of the members is a chair of a very well-known, university. Another is involved in the Society of Pediatric Dermatology. Another member, headed up the microbiome platform for Johnson & Johnson for 13 years. So really strong expertise around creating, products, understanding the skin, the anatomy, physiology, as well as disease state. And where we landed was a system-based approach that was really focused on optimizing the health of baby's bottom versus just really treating, the problem when it happens. And, that's really a prevention mindset. And so, that's really the core thing that differentiates us. We're firm believers that, a healthy skin is the most protective skin. And so our system-based approach is really meant to be used daily to support a healthier skin barrier. So,
very interesting. And tell us a little bit about your background leading up to this. So you've been involved in several different ventures. I know that you one of the ventures you were involved in actually had an exit. So tell us just about your career kind of leading up to Buddle Skincare and just kind of, how that led to what you're working on today.
Yeah, I've been very blessed over the years to be a part of teams that have helped build and exit a few different companies, primarily on the pharmaceutical side, as well as CPG. And the last one that we built was a dermatology-focused pharmaceutical company that I oversaw the brand RX business unit, generic RX business unit, and the consumer health business unit. The flagship product that we had that some people will recognize, which is a phenomenal product, is Blue Lizard Australian Sunscreen. And that's where I really cut my teeth on, direct-to-consumer marketing, CPG, navigating the landscape of food, drug, mass, and retail. And just had an absolute blast building Blue Lizard. We did some really cool stuff with Major League Baseball, the PGA, and tennis, and MD Anderson, and a lot of great stuff. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's a phenomenal product. And so we sold that company to private equity back in December of 2017, and that was really a good opportunity for me to move back home to the Central Kentucky area. And it was really along that journey that, we recognized that there's an opportunity specifically in baby and children's skincare. If you look at skincare in general, a lot of the baby brands that are on the market today are made and manufactured by companies that already have adult skincare brands. And they're kind of treated as bolt-ons. And I think really the rationale behind that, and I may be completely wrong, but the adult skincare market is a significantly larger market, right? And so when you're poised, when the question comes up as a business, where do I put my dollar? Do I put it in the much larger market, or do I put it in the smaller, baby children's skincare market? A lot of the times the answer is pretty obvious. Let's put it in the adult market. And so that really creates a unique situation where there's not a lot of innovation, R&D being dedicated to children and babies' skincare. And that really creates a pretty nice opening for a company like ours to come in and really be that innovating partner that is laser focused on, baby and children's skin.
Yeah, that's definitely a niche that, I think to your point, definitely gets kind of overlooked just because that life cycle is a lot shorter. I mean, there's all the kind of momfluencers that you think of that, really place a lot of focus on that kind of I guess just phase of life. But past that, it does seem like there is a pretty big gap in the market for these types of products. And one of the reasons that, I wanted to have you on the podcast to chat about this is we really don't talk to many founders that are taking an e-com sort of CPG, or building an e-com CPG brand. So talk about just some of the unique challenges that come along with that. So, I mean, when you think of the founders we typically talk to building a software company, you build it once and it kind of has that infinite scalability of just being able to replicate the code. With CPG, that's a whole different dynamic. So, I mean, just off the top of your head, what are some of the more significant challenges that kind of come along with that?
Yeah, well, specifically for us, it's not lost on us that we are making products for the most precious gift that any of us could have. I'm a father of 4, a grandfather to 3. My business partner is a father to 5. And so we take that very seriously. And so I think, starting with safety, tolerability, for the most sensitive skin, is something that we take very seriously. Also the efficacy side of the product. So when we developed all of the products, we took the system that we developed and we put that through a clinical trial. So IRB approved clinical trial. We enrolled 40 diaper-age children who all presented with mild to moderate diaper dermatitis and saw phenomenal results. We did additional studies as it relates to sensitivity, irritation, specifically in sensitive skin populations. So we did a lot of research, a lot of studies to make sure that the safety is there, number one. Number two, I would say, getting the product to market is not dissimilar to, any other kind of CPG or e-com brand that's a product type brand. And for, e-com specifically, the cost of customer acquisition is high.
Right.
You've got an emerging brand that is for these precious gifts that mom knows nothing about, right? And so, we spend a fair amount of time educating and trying to build trust and credibility, so that mom feels comfortable being able to at least try the product. And once she tries the product, we know that it'll be safe and that it'll work, and that's what she wants. But really the challenge is, I think, a little bit similar, where, for e-com specifically, that cost of customer acquisition is pretty high initially. And so that's, I know, definitely one of the challenges. But I'd say the biggest challenge as an emerging brand within this space is creating that bridge of trust that mom feels comfortable walking down.
Yeah, and to hit on the creator and influencer side of things for a second, you see a lot of brands trying to really align themselves with influencers, all the way to the point of giving some of these influencers equity in the business to have those influencers kind of put their weight behind it and bring that product to their audience. I know you guys are exploring that a little bit on sort of this kind of momfluencer side of things. What's your approach to that, and what are your thoughts around building a business like that? I just think that's a very interesting way to go about it. So I'd be interested to hear, how you guys have approached that.
Yeah, it's changed over the years quite a bit. When we were building Blue Lizard, this community that we know as mom influencers today were known as mommy bloggers and vloggers at that point. And we engaged with them, for Blue Lizard to, tell, their audiences about their experience with Blue Lizard and that type of stuff. Fast forward to today, technology has advanced just at tremendous speeds from, 2015, 16 to where we're at today, where we have a full influencer community. That being said, the influencer model has become somewhat a little bit saturated, right? We as consumers are more aware today of kind of the influencer brand relationships. And so when we approach influencer marketing, it's really trying to approach it in a more authentic way that really allows people to understand the brand and engage with the brand. But at the end of the day, it's all about creating awareness for us so that people can, try the product and drive trial. And so we leverage, those opportunities in very specific ways and very different ways. Some influencers, are open to, hey, send me some product and, I'll give it a try and I'll, make some content and post it, for my audience. Others are, hey, there's a certain fee for me doing specific things, a more kind of fee for service type model. And others, skew more towards, hey, a more strategic collaboration. And so our thinking really is, to have a group that's pretty close to the company of, moms who have been successful in the influencer space, who have age-appropriate children that can help guide our company on multiple fronts, right? So when we go to formulate, new products, having them around, the formulation, what ingredients are we using, along with our scientific advisory board, of course. But when we have samples made up, let's look, touch, feel, smell, and they become part of that community. It's important for us that we're building a company that truly represents mom in every way, shape, and form, because we feel like that's the best thing for baby. And obviously trying to leverage the science background of who we have around the table and our own experiences. Bringing them into the fold in a little bit, intimate way will make us better as a company. And yeah, we talk about equity type situations with those. But yeah, I mean, like I said, we're just learning as we go. We just kicked off our influencer program in July. And so we're relatively young as it relates to, having a fully matured influencer program. We lean heavily into social, as well as far as media and that type of stuff too. So trying to activate on multiple fronts there.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's almost a version. Well, it is a version of talking to your users. Getting feedback from actual moms that, I'm sure they feel some sort of ownership when they're able to give feedback and see that actually, come out in the product that they're promoting at the same time. That kind of leads me to the next part of just talk a little bit about kind of where you guys are in the cycle of building this business. So obviously you have a product that's out. You're kind of going through go to market right now. Let's dive into talking about the stage of the business and, going through some of the challenges that come along with the stage you guys are currently at.
Yeah. So, if you take a step back and you look at the 3 to 5 year strat plan for the company, where we're at right now is what we call the bottom line. And that's, anything and everything to optimize the health of baby's bottom, right? Our next kind of product category that we will bridge into is what we call the skin line. And those are things that are designed to, help, treat and manage things like atopic dermatitis or eczema, seborrheic dermatitis or cradle cap. And then out beyond that, we've got the outdoors line, which are things like, sunscreens for baby, children, all natural bug repellent, all stuff really and products specifically formulated for, baby and children's skin. So that's the 3 to 5 year, overall vision of the company is to be a fully integrated, children or baby and children's skincare company. To date, really getting a company from, PowerPoint presentation of, hey, this is the crazy idea that we have, and to where we're at today has been a challenge. I mean, there's been challenges along the way. I mean, it's been a blast, don't get me wrong, having a ball of fun. But, a primary example is with our Buddle Clean Cheeks Foam Cleanser. We launched January 17th, and within 2 weeks of launch, we found out that we had a leakage issue with the pump. And what was happening was, when this would ship via air, the environmental pressure was squeezing the side and causing it to seep out around the edge of the product. So we basically had to shift from a hard launch mode to a soft launch mode, and work with our packaging company, which was great, to help navigate that issue, and fix the issue, and then reemerge, late March, early April. So that kind of cost us, a couple months there. But those are the things that you never want those things to happen, but they're going to happen.
Right.
If something can go wrong, I can guarantee you it will. And the more prepared you can be for that, the better. But yeah, it's just a constant learning game. Technology is advancing, so much, especially with AI and bots and, things that you can leverage to make your business, more effective or efficient, on multiple fronts. It's kind of staying abreast of those items too. So, but yeah, it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah. Anytime you're handling physical inventory, I mean, it just gives rise to so many more things that can go wrong where, if it's something that's just like software, there's a different set of problems, but at least, you don't have all of these physical items that you're trying to get into other people's hands. Would love to focus on the e-com side of this for a little bit. So you mentioned that you actually work with partners like a Walmart to be able to distribute your product. So, for those of us that might not be super familiar with how that side of it works, you might not necessarily be on the shelves at Walmart stores, but you can still leverage their e-com distribution to distribute your product. So can you just kind of talk us through how you guys approach partnerships like that and kind of the dynamics of working with somebody like a Walmart on the e-com side of things?
Yeah, well, and I can speak to both sides of it. So when we were scaling Blue Lizard, I was the guy that was out in Bentonville with Walmart, and Minneapolis with Target, and Woonsocket, Rhode Island with CVS, and so I've played the brick and mortar game with that product. I know I've learned some hard lessons in that space, which is part of the reason that we're building it. We've chose to build it via e-commerce first, but we do have a plan to strategically bridge to brick and mortar on down the road. But we launched on our own website using a Shopify backend, which is just a phenomenal software. Just makes things so much more effective. As well as Amazon. And from there, we got set up with on Meta, which is Instagram, Facebook, and then expanded out to Walmart.com. We're in discussions with Target as well as Babylist and trying to get set up on TikTok Shop. So, that's kind of the mix that we have right now. We don't want to go too far, too wide. Because really, we want to create trust and credibility, right? And so when you have a new brand, an emerging brand that's for baby, if somebody can go to Amazon and say, oh, well, they're on Amazon, or they're on Walmart, or whatever it may be, it just kind of adds to that credibility.
For sure.
And hopefully provides a little bit of comfort for the consumer to go ahead and make the purchase to drive trial. And so, as it relates to working with these, retail partners, it's relatively, simple to do. I mean, it takes a lot of oversight, to get these folks set up, to get Amazon set up, and to make sure that your listings are optimized to maximize your keyword and search, and that you're taking advantage of, all of the programs the platforms have to offer, can help drive success on those platforms. But basically, when you look at Walmart and how we're set up in Walmart specifically, it really is a drop ship type model. And so the customer goes on to Walmart, makes an order, that order pipes over into Shopify, and then it follows kind of the fulfillment process that we would for a D2C, type arrangement. So, but it's really about building, credibility and trust.
For sure. Yeah. Having it on those larger sites. And I assume there's some sort of, they take some sort of portion of the sale price whenever it's sold on there. They're just essentially using it as the front end store, taking some sort of portion of that, and then you're fulfilling it from your end.
They're taking a portion. Yes.
I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm interested to talk a little bit about, just like the dynamic of starting this business from a funding perspective. So, when we talked to you're currently fundraising for the business, just talk to us a little bit about kind of what stage you guys are at with fundraising and the dynamics of going and pitching investors on a CPG brand. So I know that's, much different than fundraising for software, because just talking about, okay, where's the capital return? What are the exit opportunities? So when you're talking to investors, kind of talk us through, what you're telling them when you're pitching to them.
Yeah. So we're on our second round. Our initial round really got us through all of the development, testing, packaging, branding, setting up everything ready to go, inventory, as well as kind of the early days of launch. We've then, opened up the round that's existing, and that's to further fuel, advertising and promotion of the bottom line that we talked about, as well as start development of the skin line. And part of that is, we're firmly aware that our customer right now kind of has an expiration date, right? So with diaper rash or diapers in general, you've got somebody from, birth, all the way up to, let's say, 24, 30 months, whenever they kind of go into potty training, right? And then there's a little time that they'll still develop rashes from here, here and there, but there's an expiration to the consumer. And so, part of, our goal, outside of creating, really innovation, and better outcomes, is to help extend out the product offering, so that we've got more of a lifetime value, for that consumer. And so that's, part of the proceeds that we want to use from the existing round is to, start the development of the skin line. But yeah, it's all been, friends and family, people that we've worked with, families that, have benefited from, the building and exiting of companies that, that know us pretty well, right? And that's what I've learned along the way is it's really somebody that's, placing a bet on you. And, of course, the business plan has to make sense. The opportunity for return has to be at least plausible, and believable. But at the end of the day, do you have a team that can execute? And, do we believe that this team can get us to that, kind of, liquidation type event? That's what I've seen, at least thus far, from the people that we've brought in. But yeah, and money's great. Yeah, I often say that I rank it right up there with oxygen. You kind of need it. It's not everything, but it's highly important, especially when you're scaling a business. But making sure that you have the right capital around the table, and what that means for us is we don't obviously turn away money unless it's kind of tied to the Corleone family or something like that. Somebody that's going to cause us to go sleep with the fishes or really be disruptive in the business, right? But our ideal investor is somebody that can come in and be accretive, in various ways. Whether they've got a network of people that can do certain things, or they've got an expertise themselves that can help guide the company in certain ways. That's really what we look for. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey. It's the first time that I've raised, capital from scratch. I've always come in, kind of to companies that have been in growth mode. And so we've been going out and, securing growth capital. It's a little bit different when you're starting something from scratch and basically going, from a PowerPoint presentation to, products on the market and commercializing. And you learn a lot along the way. And,
Yeah.
If you bring in kind of the wrong investment with the wrong anchor point, it can make it challenging. And we've been very blessed and lucky, thus far, that we've got great supportive investor community around us.
Yeah. I know when I've been now a part of 2 different startups that have gone through fundraising, and what I've learned is it is just a grind. It really does almost start to feel like a numbers game, which sounds cliche in a way, but from the founder's perspective, you're getting your attention pulled away from actually building the business. Now you're having to go and kind of have all these meetings and do all these pitches and all of those sorts of things. And I don't know if you've kept track. I think the first startup that I worked with, I believe the founder ended up doing 80 some pitches before getting the yes that we needed to get capital in the business. And then the one I'm at now, we've with our current round of fundraising, we've probably had, I don't know, 50 at this point. I mean, it's just a lot. You just have to go through a lot of them to find that investor that's the right fit.
It is a lot. Absolutely. But I mean, look, if it was easy, everybody would do it. Yeah, I know it's cliche, but, I guess I spent my career, building companies for other folks. And it was time, and so, yeah, learning those hard lessons along the way.
No doubt about that. Well, now that you're back here in Kentucky, You've been interacting with some of the people in the ecosystem that want to support entrepreneurs and help people like you build their businesses. Just curious, from your perspective, what are some ways that we can be more helpful to founders as they're building their businesses? I'm curious if you've had any personal experiences that feedback for the ecosystem or things that we're doing well already. It's kind of where we always like to end these podcasts.
Yeah, it's interesting. I love Lexington. Absolutely love Lexington. Grew up here, and I guess I'm a boomerang because I moved away and then came back. But I'm passionate about this community. We've got a lot of really sharp people in the Lexington area, and there's no reason that we shouldn't be able to do more than we're doing. Obviously a key piece of that is access to capital. Access to capital specifically in the Lexington area can be challenging. Access to capital is challenging in general. But when you think about, other areas that are in close proximity, whether it's Cincinnati or Louisville, I feel like we could be doing more to support founders and really drive the ecosystem. UK, I think, has made great strides, over the past years. What Ian has done over there, I think, has really helped out quite a bit as it relates to, what the innovation that's being created at the university and how that spins out of the university to kind of feed the Lexington startup scene and ecosystem. I think that has helped, but just getting more entrepreneurs in place, which let's be honest, a lot of that has to do with capital. There's a reason that, Austin is absolutely blowing up right now. Well, there's multiple reasons, but, one of the main reasons is there's a lot of capital. There's a lot of access to capital down there, and there's a lot of resources too. When you look at, the CPG landscape in Lexington, it's not thriving at all. And that's
Right.
part of why I wanted to do this here, is to help kind of change that, and to start to build expertise, in and around this area, whether it's related to e-commerce, technology, social, influencer, product development, all of that stuff. We've got resources. We've just got to be able to tap into them. But yeah, it's, we've worked with folks like Lexington Commerce. They've been a great source of information and connecting people within the community. Eric Hartman, who's a long time, seasoned ecosystem guy, is just, number one, he's a phenomenal individual, but number two, he's really passionate about, seeing the startup scene in Lexington grow and develop. And so he's a great connector of people. There's others in the community that I'm probably missing that are like him, but I really do think a lot of it kind of hinges on access to capital.
Yeah, for sure. I think access to capital is definitely the one we hear the most often. I think one of to I guess give a critique, and then something that I feel like I hear Lexington specifically and Kentucky overall doing really well is just the willingness for people to connect to resources. I feel like those two things can kind of go hand in hand. Is we might not necessarily have all the capital we need here in Lexington or in Kentucky, but we do have, I feel like, very strong networks here that are able to help, at least tap into different networks that might make access to capital a little bit easier. It is an interesting dynamic. One of the things we talk about a lot is like, you kind of need that big exit in the ecosystem to bring capital, infuse capital into the ecosystem. But it's hard to get that big exit without capital first. It's like a chicken or an egg type of problem. Yeah. And so what we talk to founders a lot about is like, well, being able to raise capital outside of Kentucky, still build your company here, and then hopefully be able to let that capital flow back into the ecosystem is kind of the ideal scenario there. But yeah, I think that's all very good feedback. Before we let you go, where can people learn more about Buddle Skincare? What are the social channels? What's the website? Go ahead and do a quick plug for us before we end off here.
Yeah, absolutely. So website is buddleskincare.com. And all of the social handles are at buddleskincare.com. The marketing team's done a great job to create, assets. Our influencer network is, starting to kick in, and so there's a little bit more UGC out there. Instagram, I think we're at like 22,000, a little over 22,000 followers now. And again, that's pretty good for kind of soft launching in January and hard launching in April. But yeah, if people want to connect with me, I think LinkedIn's probably the best way. And just shoot out a message and happy to chat. And whether it's somebody locally that's looking to kind of go down this pathway and pick the brain of a fellow guy that was crazy enough to go down this road, or just kind of learn a little bit more. But yeah, those are the best channels.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Gaylord, for coming on and sharing about Buddles. I can officially say this was our first interview about a diaper rash company, but I really enjoyed the conversation and looking forward to continuing to follow you guys building the business.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.